Hello guys, you are welcome to my Django tutorial. In this video, we are going to be making a blog website, but we are going to be focusing on how to build an API, a REST API to retrieve, that's to get, update, and create and delete data. So we are going to be looking into CRUD operations in REST framework. And we're going to be using the Django REST framework for this. I have a folder I created for this project, and this folder is called blog underscore API. I'm going to open it with the Visual Studio Code. Right now, I'm going to use Ctrl J to bring up my terminal. And I'm going to be making use of the Windows PowerShell. So whichever terminal you have, you can still make use of that, but I'll be making use of my PowerShell. So let's create a virtual environment first. Now, what is a virtual environment? A virtual environment helps us to visualize our Python environment to make sure that it is isolated from our local Python environment, so that whatever modules we are installing does not clash with what we already have in the local environment. So that's the essence of using a virtual environment, and I will advise you also make use of the virtual environment. So to make a virtual environment, I am going to use Python space -m VENV. So the -m flag tells this that I want to use a module called VENV, and that VENV is the module that helps us to create virtual environment, and then space followed by the name of the virtual environment. Let's call this virtual environment my ENV. And we're going to wait for this virtual environment to create. So look at this side of your application or your IDE. You are going to see that the virtual environment is being created. Now the virtual environment has been created. Let's activate it. So to activate virtual environment on PowerShell, what we are going to do is we are going to say that this is the current directory, and we want to use the my-env virtual environment and slash scripts slash activate dot ps1. So what I am actually trying to do right now is that within the virtual environment, you have a folder containing all the scripts. And if I open this folder, you're going to see the activate.ps1. So I want to use this to activate my virtual environment. You can also use activate.bat, okay, or you can use activate, whichever one. But if you're on Mac or Linux, there will be a different um, command, and the command is going to be source space. So if you're on Mac, the command is going to be source space, then followed by the name of your virtual environment slash bin slash activate. So this is going to be the command on Mac and Linux. So let's clear this. All right, so now we have a virtual environment active. So this is how you know that your virtual environment is active. You either see it here or somewhere here. So this shows that we have the virtual environment active. Now let's go ahead and install Django, because Django is what we want to work with. So we're going to use pip install Django and we press enter. So we are going to wait for it. Depending on the speed of your internet, this is going to install some bunch of files. So let's pause the video and come back when it is installed. All right, our Django has been installed successfully. Right now, we want to do something. So let's just start our project and start working. Then we can then uh, do the next step. So let's clear this. So this, since we have Django right now, what we need to do is to create a project. And to create a project, we will use Django-admin. So we can only use Django-admin when we have Django installed. So Django-admin start project. So followed by the name of the project. So I'll call this project a blog app or blog project, and give a space with a dot. So this dot makes sure that it doesn't create an additional folder. So right now you will see that Django has created a project called blog project. And then it also went ahead and created the manage.py. So the manage.py file helps us to run command line commands on our command line interfaces. So it helps us to be able to run server, run migrations, and do so many other things that we want to do with Django. And if you open this project directory, you are going to see the underscore init.py, which initializes this as a Python module, and then the asgi.py, which handles asynchronous server gateway interface, and the settings.py, which is one of the most important parts of this project. We're going to be using this a lot. And then the urls.py, which handles all the URL routing or mapping, and then the wsgi.py, which handles the web server gateway interface. And this is where we can run our application from. Okay, for now, let's close this. And if I run python manage.py run server and press enter, this is going to create a server, a local server, for us to be able to test our project. So whatever we are doing, we're going to be testing it on this localhost port 8000. All right, so our application, our Django project is running successfully. So once you see this page, it means that your page is running successfully. Now we need to create apps. So I'm going to close this server by pressing Ctrl C. Now the server is no longer running. So if I refresh this page, I'm going to see page or site not found. And that is because the server is not running. Now, if you are still seeing something like this, it actually means that your browser has stored some of these files. So when your server is not active, your browser already knows what to show you. Okay, so let's get back to our project. coming back to our project, we need to start a Django application. And what Django application does is that the Django applications are just some parts of the components of our project. Take, for instance, um, if you want to create a hospital management system, you know that the hospital is a multi-department institution. So, which means that you can departmentalize each of the departments and separate them into apps. So, for instance, you have the records department that takes the patient's records. You have the lab department that diagnoses whatever the patient is suffering from. And then you have the doctor's appointment department that controls or handles the doctors. So each of these parts can become the Django applications in a project that can be called a hospital management system. And that's just a simple way to understand Django projects and Django applications. So to start a Django application, what we'll do is we're going to do Django dash admin, sorry, start app, and then followed by the name of the app. So let's call this blog and press enter. So this is going to create another directory called blog. Now this directory is our app, but by default, Django does not know that we have an app. So what we will do is we are going to make sure that Django knows that we have this app. So what we will do is we will go to the project and look for the settings.py, and we will look for the list of installed apps. So this is the list of all the installed apps we have here, and we can just add our blog. So we have added the blog. So now Django knows that we have an app called blog. The next thing is we'll go to the blog and set up some URLs that is going to handle how requests are received from our apps, from the browsers. Okay, so we are going to go into the blog, which is the app, and we need to create a urls.py file. So this particular file is going to handle all the requests coming from the browser. It knows where to send them, which page of our app to send users to, and that's the URL. So let's do this. So we are going to write this out from Django.urls import path, and let's close this, and then we can then go to the project and go to the URLs. You can see we have URLs. We created the URLs in the blog app, but this particular project URL is created by default by Django. So Django creates it for us. So just take note of that. So here on the urls.py, if you open it, you will see it will tell you to add your paths or your URLs here. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to import one function called include, because I want to use this include to include all the URLs coming from my Django app. Okay, so right now I am going to use paths, and within it I am going to set an empty string. So using an empty string tells it that, oh, this is going to be the main page of my website. Or if I have something like this, home slash, then it tells it that, oh, it is going to be the website slash home. If I have about slash, it will tell it, oh, this is going to be the website slash about. So, but when it is empty this way, it is going to be the website or the home page of the website. I hope that is clear. And then we're going to use include and include all the URLs coming from the blog. And that's going to be blog.urls. So we are now including all the URLs that are coming from here. And that's basically all we need to do. Now, Django is an MVT platform, which means that Django handles things from model view and template architecture. So, which means that the model represents the database, which handles the data retrieving, data updating, deleting, and other things. So when these data are retrieved, they go straight into the views. The views handle what the user is supposed to see before that gets to the template, which is the HTML. Okay, so we need to go into this app and go to the view and set up some function or class that is going to handle what our user is going to see. So right now I am going to use this from Django.http import http response. And then I need to create a function to handle my views. So I'm going to call it home, and is going to take one argument, which is going to be request, and then we are going to return an HTTP response, and let's call this hello wicked world. Hello wicked world. All right, so hello world, and we need to come into this URL and tell it how to handle or where to send them to. Because we already set a function that we control home, but when the request is coming, it doesn't know where to come to get that particular function we just created. So we really need to do this. We need to import the view. So from the current directory, which is dot, we're going to import views. And then our URL patterns is going to be a list of all our URLs. So let's do that part. And remember what I said before, an empty string represents our home page. And then we are going to tell it when it gets to the home page, use this particular function to show the user what we want them to see. So we have a function called home, and we want to make sure that whenever the user visits our website's homepage, it shows whatever content we have in the view home function. So we're going to do this like this, views dot home, and then we are going to call this name is home. So we're calling it home. All right, if I want this URL to get to about, contact, and different other pages, this is where you put it up, and then you create a view for it, which is going to be a function or a class. All right, let's run the server again. So to revisit the last commands we have done before, you just use your arrow up. So we have seen python manage.py run server, and we press enter to run our server. And our server is now running. So if we refresh this, we see hello world. So this is now serving hello world to us. But if you go to /about, it will tell you page not found. But if I go to the URL and change this to about slash, this is now going to take me to the about page. So if I refresh, it will show me that same hello wicked world. Once our server is running, you can see right now we are now in the /about. But if we go back to the home page and refresh, it says page not found. So this is where we control all the URLs. I hope that's clear. All right, so that's all we need to do to understand Django itself. Now, what we want to do is we want to create API to REST APIs to handle all the blogs, to retrieve the blogs, post a blog, delete an existing blog, or update an existing blog. And in doing that, we're going to first of all use the module called the Django REST Framework. And you can get it by going to this website called Django REST Framework.org. And this is what we are going to be using. So I'm going to just click on installation, and it says using pip install including any optional package. So these two are optional packages. I don't need them for now, but what I need is pip install Django REST Framework. So I'm going to just copy this and come back to my project or to my IDE, close my server with Ctrl C, and paste what I copied, pip install Django REST Framework. So as the installation is running, I need to do one more thing. I need to include the REST framework into the installed applications. So we come back again to this. So our installation is still working. So we go to settings.py, and for right now, I am going to put it above the blog. So right now, the REST framework has been added to the list of all the installed apps in my project. So we can come back again to this, and it tells us how to include, if you are intending to use the browsable API. So if you want to use the browsable API, then you will need to install the Markdown. So look at the comment here. It says Markdown support for browsable API. So if you want to do that, you just need to include this into your URLs, and also include something like this. So, but right now I don't need any of this. So I'll just proceed to my project. So you can see that the REST framework has completely installed. So I'm going to put this down and close this. Then I need to create a model to handle my blog. But before I do that, we want to also have a JWT token to handle authentications. But before I talk about authentication, let's just do something like this. So let's have a class for our blog posts. So I'm going to use blog post. And this model is going to be inheriting from models dot the model class. And here we're going to put up all the things we need. So we need a blog title, and this blog title is going to be models dot char field. Maximum character, so max length, max length is going to be equal to 100. So let's set it as 100. The next one is the blog slug, and it does going to be models dot slug field. Okay, so the models dot slug field, let's just look into it, because we can use slug to get each blog or even pass it into the browser. If you have done any blog website before, you would understand what I am saying. So let's just say in Django, just to see some comments about that. So the slug in Django, slug field defines a field in a model that is designed to store a slug. A slug is a URL-friendly version of a string, typically used to create clean, readable, and search engine-friendly URL, just like I said. And if you open more, tells you all the things you need to know about slug field. As you can see, slug field also takes these positional arguments: max length, unique is true, and then blank is also true, because sometimes you may not actually want to receive any um, to type in any slug by yourself, something like that. I don't want to go into details, but let's just leave it this way. But if you look at this, I think this gives us exactly what we want, the content of the blog. So let's just copy this. Let's just copy this. Return back to our this thing and paste this. So I'm going to now explain what we just copied. So what I want to use in this case is going to be post underscore blog underscore post. So it doesn't matter, it can still be blog post this way. So, but this is the title which we have created. Let's change it back to 100 characters. And then the slug is going to be 250 characters and unique, but it can also be blank. And then the content is going to be models.text field, because we want to receive a text box. And then this function is the function that is going to automatically create the slug for us. So we don't actually need to create an ID, because automatically Django is going to create an ID for us. But this function takes self and arguments and keyword arguments. And if not self.slug, then self.slug is slugify.self.title. Sorry. So this is going to pass in the title into the slug. So the slug is going to be our title. Whatever thing we have in our title is going to be saved as our slug. And we are going to save that and return self.title in the admin. So that's just for now. This is what I really need to do. If you want to also add image, you can do that. That is the blog thumbnail. So let's add a blog thumbnail. So let's just say thumbnail, thumbnail, which is going to be the image. And this is going to be models dot image field, and this is going to be uploaded into upload to, and then let's say images. Sorry, it's going to be a string. Let's say images. So, or rather we can do, yeah, slash images. So this is going to make sure that all the images are going to be stored in the images directory. We can also set it to null as true, and also blank as also true. So in case we don't have any image, so we wouldn't bother ourselves putting any image there. So once we are done with this, we can come back here and would run a migration. So let's do Python manage.py make migrations. So this is going to create a migration file. If you open the migration, you will see that we only have the init.py. Okay, we have an error, and it says system check error blog.blogpost.thumbnail field image field upload to argument must be a relative path, not absolute path. Okay, so let's remove this and try it one more time. And we still have this issue, but the issue is no longer from the path, and it's telling us that blog.blogpost.thumbnail cannot use image field because pillow is not installed. All right, so this is it is good to always see errors like this so that you would know what these errors are and how to solve them. So the reason why we are having this error is because we don't have the Python dependency for handling images, and that's pillow. So let's install pillow. So we are going to use pip install pillow. So pillow is going to help us to handle images. So let's wait for it to install pillow. So right now pillow has been installed. We can go back and run our python manage.py make migrations. And this is going to run migration. So if you take a look at the migrations, you will see 0001 initial.py, which was created here, as you can see here. So this is the migration file, and we can go ahead and do Python, or rather let's just clear the screen. and run python manage dot py migrate. So this migrate is going to run all the migrations and store it into our database. So right now we now have a database. All right, the next thing is let's actually add our admin our models into the admin. So let's go to the admin.py, and first thing is to import our model. So we can say from dot models import our blog post. So we are importing this blog post model into the admin. Now we need to register it. So let's use the list display class. So we're going to create a class and call it blog post admin, and it's going to inherit from admin dot model admin, and this is going to have the list display, which is going to be a tuple, containing all the things we want to display. So we want to display the title. We also want to display the thumbnail. So, or rather, let's leave the thumbnail. We want to display the slug. Before then, we also would want to display the ID. So let's also display ID. So we know we don't have ID here, but by default, Python is going to create an ID. So because of that, we can include ID here. Now, once we're done with that, we can register this by saying admin.site.register. And what we want to register here is the blog post. And one more thing is the blog post admin. All right, so we have registered the model. Right now, we need to create an admin just to test out our application and add some blog. So let's do python manage.py create super user. So we want to create a super user. So we put our username. I'm going to use my test username, which is going to be this, and put my test email, which is going to be this, and put up my password. Always use a strong password. This is testing, so I don't need to bother myself with the password. So right now, we can run our server with python manage.py run server. So right now our server is running. We can go back. We'll leave this page, but then I'm going to just copy this URL and open it here and add /admin. So the admin has created, the Django has created an admin for us, and we can just log in with our username, which is what I created here, and the password that we just created, and we log in. And right now you can see the blog post, and we can add a new blog. Let's add blog here and say testing my first blog post. I won't put any slug for now. I'll just copy some things from here as the content of my blog, and I'll paste it. I'll choose any image as my thumbnail. I'll use this, or rather use this, and I'll save. And you can see the ID, the title, and the slug. So my blog is showing. So I now have a blog in the admin. But then you can see the slug was added by default. Sorry. The slug was added successfully by default. I did not put any slug, but it was added for me. And this can be passed into the URL easily. So it enables for easy SEO optimization or search engine optimization. All right, let's get on with what we came to do, which is going to be the REST framework. We need to return API view or even JSON files from here instead of returning this broad sentence here. So let's go back to our IDE. And we can do Ctrl C to close the server back and put this down. Close this and close this. Right now, before we can show all these things we have done right now, before we can show it into our view, we need a serializer. So what a serializer actually do is that the serializer helps us to convert our data from different data types, converting it to either JSON or default Python data types. And that is what the serializers does. If you come to the top here and you go to serialization, you would see how to handle serializers. Okay, this is the model, and then this is the model serializer. So we need to do this right away. All right, coming back to our project, I'm going to close the view, but then inside our app we need to create another file called serializer.py. serializer.py. If you come to the documentation, you would see that. If you come to the documentation, so that's going to be serializers and not serializer. Serializers. So let's change this. Rename, and we change it to serializers.py. And it's going to, we need to import some certain things from there. So from REST framework, import serializers. So that's the first line. From REST framework, import serializers. And one more thing, we need to import the model that we want to serialize. So we can say from dot models import the blog post, because that's the model we want to serialize. And then we need to create a class to handle the serialization. So if you come here, you would see how we can do that. Okay, so you create a class that we handle the serialization. So I'm going to create this class and I'm going to call it blog post serializer. Serializer. The spelling is capital letter serializer. And it's going to take serializers dot model serializer, and we're going to specify meta, or rather class meta. And the class meta, we have the model, which is going to be my blog post, and the fields that I want to actually return. Fields is going to be, so let's make it a list. If you come here, so you see that these people, they actually listed out all their serializers. But if you come down, you would see so many ways you can do that. You can either use there are so many ways to do this. I don't want to waste a lot of time. So if you look at this, you are going to see that this is going to be a list containing all the fields that you want to return. So I am going to add all the fields here. I'm going to return the ID. I'm going to return the title. I'm also going to return the thumbnail. And I am going to return the content. And finally, I am also going to return the slug. So this is basically telling it all the things that you want to return. If you go to the models.py, you will see what you have there. I have title, slug, content, and thumbnail. So these are what I am actually returning. The ID is automatically added by Django. So I'm returning all this. And this is all I need to do to in the serializer. Then we come back to our views. Right now, I don't actually need all these ones. I don't need them. So what I need to do right now is to import my response. So from Django, sorry, from REST framework, import status, because I want to use the HTTP status. Again, from REST framework, import from REST framework dot shortcuts, sorry, dot decorators. I want to import response. Sorry, I want to import API view. Sorry, API view. One more thing, is from the REST framework dot response import response. From REST framework dot response import response with capital R, response. All right. I think all I need is here already. So let's now import our blog post model. So from dot models import our blog post and also import our serializer. So from dot serializers import the blog post serializer, because that's what we use to work. And then here that we want to return an API view. So we're going to say at API view, and this is going to contain a list of all the request methods that we want to pass in. So we are going to start with the get. Let's also do post as well. Post. So for right now, the user or whoever that accesses this API can only do a get request or a post request. So they can actually post or they can retrieve. So these two things can be done from here. Okay. So we want to do something here, and we want to have a variable called let's call it posts, and then we assign it to um, the blog post dot objects dot all. You know how we do it. So this gets all the blog posts from our blog post. So I think I just need to do only the get method for now so that it will get easier to understand. All right, now that we have a variable that has taken all the content of our model, we need to pass in this variable into the serializer. So here we're going to say serializer is post serializer is blog post serializer. So we are now passing in whatever whatever thing that is going to come from the serializer, we are going to store it as serializer. So we are going to make sure we pass in the post, which is this variable. We are passing it into the blog post serializer, which we created in the serializer.py. So, and one more thing is that because we are going to collect many data, we're going to show many data. So we need to tell it that it is going to do that. So by saying many is equals true. And now we are going to then return a response to the users. or whoever that is making this request. And what are we going to return back to them? We're going to return back the serializer dot data. So we're going to return all the data coming from the serializer. That's just it. Now let's run our server back. Python manage.py run server. And if we go back to our home page and refresh, look at what we get. We get a 200 code, which means this is okay, and allowed method is the get, and the content is application/JSON, and this is our blog. And you can see the ID of one, and the title is my first blog post, and then the thumbnail is this, and the content is this, the slug is this. So you see, this is exactly what we have inside our blog post database. So we are now returning it as an API view. But you can still change this to JSON, and this is how it will look. All right, let's go back. So this is just a GET request. Let's add a POST request. So I want to use the same view or the same endpoint. So when I say endpoint, I mean the URL. So we want to use the same URL to also do that of post. So we can just put up the post method here, and we're going to use if statement to look for conditions. When there is a post request, do this, and when there is a get request, do this. So right now I am going to use if request dot method is post, then do these things we did here. So I'm going to indent it properly. So if the request is get, sorry, not post, is get, because what we actually did before is a get request. Then else if, which is elif request dot method. So here, if the request dot method is post, we then do this. So what are we going to do? So what we are going to do right now is we are going to set a serializer, and this serializer is going to be the the blog post serializer. And what this blog post serializer is going to do is that it is going to receive a data which is coming from the request dot data, and then we're going to check if the data that is gotten from the user is valid. We need to save it and return it back to the user. So what we are going to do right now is we are going to use if statement. If the serializer, which is this serializer here that has all the data that we have gotten, if this serializer is valid, we then do serializer dot save. So we need to save it, and when we save it, we then return a response. Return a response to the user, and this response we are returning to the user is going to be the serializer.data. Data. So we return back whatever they have posted to us, and then let's also return a status code. So we are going to say status is, the status is going to be http underscore 201, sorry, underscore 201, because 201 is created. So underscore 201 underscore created. That's the status. Okay. I think we're missing one thing. What are we missing? Okay, so this is what we are missing. Status is equal to status.http 201 created. So that's just what we were missing. All right. Then if this does, if the serializer is not valid, then we will return error. So we are going to return a response with serializer dot error. Serializer dot errors, and also a status code of status dot http. Let's look for 400, which is bad request. And this is all we need to do. I think we are done. Let's see our server. If we refresh, we now have this place where we can post our content. So I'm just going to create, let's try this, and let's have ID. So you may not even add ID because ID is automatically created. So let's just start with title, and the title is going to be hello posting from API view, comma 1 2 3 4. Then the thumbnail we will not add any thumbnail because we don't have any thumbnail right now. But then the content is going to be this is a test from our API to see if post request is working. Remember to always make it a string. Then the slug, I think the slug can also be empty. Let me just copy this so that in case. All right, so let's post this. It says bad request, detail, JSON pass error, expected property name enclosed in double quotes. So we're supposed to use double quotes instead of single quotes. So let's change that. Double quotes. And let me. So I've changed to double quotes. Let's try it again. Bad request. JSON pass error, illegal trailing comma before the end of object in line 3. Okay, let's try it again. Bad request, expected property name enclosed in double quotes in line 5. And okay, so see what I will do. Let's just refresh this and do a get request. So I'm going to just copy what I have here because of time, and then I'm going to paste it here. I'll change this ID to 2 and change this post to second post. Use the same thing, and the slug, I'm going to just say -2 and post it. And it says the submitted data was not a file. Okay, so and that's because we are using a thumbnail, so we don't need to pass in any thumbnail. So let's remove the thumbnail from here. So we have removed the thumbnail. Let's change this to 2 and change this to -2. Okay, post it one more time. So it has been created. And if I go to my database, refresh, you would see the second post that was made. So our API is working perfectly. Now let's be fast because of time. Let's also handle updating and deleting. So when you want to update and delete, that's the last part of this video. So let's do that. All right, let's handle this. So I'm going to use a separate endpoint for that. So let's create a function, and we're going to call this update blog. So it's going to be a function update blog. And then this function update blog, what we want to do is we want to handle, and let's use API view, and we want to handle the updates. And to handle that, we will use put method. So the put method is what we are going to use. So right now, we're going to use try and except to try getting the primary key of a particular blog. Okay, so let's do this. Try, and what do we want to try? So we want to try for each post in the blog post. So we want to get each post from the blog post dot object dot get. So we want to get, and we want to get it by accessing their primary key. So this is how we can do this. But then in this our request, we are supposed to add pk, which is going to be our primary key. Let's also pass in request. This is very important. And then except, so because we are using try and except, and then except the blog post, except this, except the blog post does not exist. So if it does not exist, what do we want to do? We can return a response with let's return a response with error, which is going to be, let's make it a string, error, which is going to be post not found. So what we are doing here is that when a blog exists, we should get that blog by the primary key. But then if this post does not exist, then we will return that the post is not found. And that is what we are using the try and except to do. So let's use 404 to the status of 404, because the status is also very important. So status is equal to status dot http 404, which represents for not found, not found. So, and then um but then with this, we can get the blog post, that particular post we want to get. So when we get it with this try, we should then try to update it. So we haven't written any logic to update it. So, but this one tells it, okay, if you don't find it, just say it is not found. But if you find it, get it with the primary key. So the next thing is to work on how to receive an input to update the content. and that is going to be serializer, which is what we have done before now. Serializer is going to be the blog post serializer, and it is going to take in our post, which is going to be the post that was gotten at the top here. And then data is equal to request dot data. Okay, let me remove this space. And if the serializer, so we are going to do exactly what we did here. So, and if the serializer dot is underscore valid, then we want to save the serializer. So serializer dot save. And then once we save this serializer, we can return a response to the user. And the response is going to be the serializer dot data. You can also add the status of that. So, but by default, the status is okay if that should work. But you can also add it. So you can just do status is equal to status dot created. So 201. So then, but if this is not valid, then we can return another response. And this response is going to be the error, which is going to be serializer dot errors, and with the status of bad request. So let's select 400, which is bad request. All right, so let's add this endpoint, which is update function, update blog function to the URL, because we haven't created any URL path for that. So let's add path, and let's say update slash, and this is going to be handled by views dot update blog, and the name is going to be update. And that's all for now. So if our server should reload, as you can see here, is reloading. If our server should reload, if it is wasting time, you can close the server and rerun it again. So right now I should go to slash update, and but then there is an issue with our URL. We need to pass in the primary key to the URL. So that's why it is saying bad request, that the method is not allowed, because we cannot get all the posts. So we need to access it by each of the primary key. So in the URLs, we need to do this slash, we can use pk, which is going to be an int, just like this. Or rather, we can just use pk this way. Let's see. Okay, so what we need to do is to tell this that this is going to be an integer containing our primary key. So I think this will solve this problem. Let's run the server back again, and you can see we are not having any errors again. So if we want to access the first block, we are going to use the primary key, which is 1, and if we are accessing it, it's going to be. So the problem we are having with this is that we are not accessing a get method. If you go to the view, you see that we only have the put. So we are not actually accessing the get method. It doesn't allow us to access the get method. And you know what we would do to be able to do that get method? So to do that, we just need to add something like this and just add get. In that case, we are also trying to access the get method. Let me try it again. And you can see it is saying field required because it actually is going to update whatever thing that we have. So we need a Postman to be able to test out this API. So let's open the Postman app from here. All right. So we need to pass in the updates here. Update slash 1 because we want to update the first blog post. So we are going to use put method, and we need to get some content. So let me just pass in the title. Let's pass in the title here and change the title to something like this. The girl is new title. And then for the slug, slug, I'm going to leave the slug. I'm going to also leave every other ones, but I'm going to only change the title. Let's see if this would work. And run this. I said internal server error, something went wrong. Okay, let's see what the error is. It says runtime error. You call this URL via put, but the URL doesn't end in a slash, and you have append slash set in it. Let's try this one more time. Okay, wait. So let's see that. I'm going to remove this get now and go to my URLs and see if I remove this. Let's try this back. let's see that first of all, this must your server must be loading. Okay, my server is running. Let's try it one more time. Bad request. This field is required, so the content field is also required. So I need to add the content field. Let me just copy what I have here and put comma here and go down here. Put up the content field, content, and change this to the content. Let's try it one more time, and it has been updated. So if we go back to our admin and refresh, it will change from testing to this. You can see it has been changed. So we are now updating our blog post, and you can also add new ones. Let me copy this and paste it here and remove the ID because it is automatic. Just to differentiate this, remove the thumbnail because it is nullable. Slug, add this to the slug, or rather I can also remove the slug. The slug will be created automatically, but I need to remove this and send. Extra data and line this. Let's build this again. And then remove this. And then also remove this. Remove this. And just add good day here. Add good day here. Just to separate it and remove this. Let me just copy this in case and try posts. And it has been created, as you can see. If you go back and refresh, you will see 3 posts. All right, the final part of this video, which is the delete part of it. So let's go to the delete. And I'm going to make a part for that. Because of time, I'll be very fast. Post del, just to, sorry. And then it's going to be views dot post del, and it's going to be name, it's going to be post del. Okay, so right now I am going to the views. I'm going to create a view for that at API view, and this is going to be delete. Let's have a function post del. Let's pass in request. We also need the primary key because that's how we can get it and delete it. All right. So we are going to also use the try and except to get the posts, each of the posts by their primary keys. So let's do that. Post is going to be, sorry, not post, but try post, which is going to be blog post dot objects dot get, and we want to get it by their primary key. So that's going to be the primary key. Except 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 post does not exist. Sorry. Yeah, except post, except not post but blog post, except blog post dot does not exist. So if it does not exist, we are going to return a response. We're going to return a response, and that response is going to be error, which is going to be post does not exist. And also we need to also return the status, which is going to be equal to status. It is going to be status dot http 404, which means does not exist. 404 not found. All right, so then the next thing we need to do after that is now to delete the post. So to delete the post, we're going to do so after that we can then do the post, sorry, the post dot delete. So we delete the post, and once we delete this post, we can then return a response to the user telling them something. So we need to tell them that the post has been deleted successfully. So we're going to have a message which is going to tell them post deleted successfully. So the post has been deleted. And we can also return a status equal to status dot we're going to use 204 no content because the post has been deleted So we should use no content. And this is it. So we need to go to the URL, and we need to also pass in the primary key inside here. So because we want to use the primary key. All right, so let's try out this thing. So we need to, I don't know. So we need to use the Postman again. And we're going to do delete. And what I want to delete is going to be the third post. Let's try. Okay, it says method not allowed. Let's try this again. Method not allowed. Oh, sorry. We are trying to use the update instead of using the post del slash. Let's delete the third post. Post deleted successfully, and you can see if we go back to our admin and refresh, you would see we have only 2 posts right now. So we have been able to do our CRUD operations successfully. I'll be doing the second video, which is going to cover the authentication using JWT token. So if you like this video, subscribe to my channel and hit on the notification bell so that anytime I post a video, you get notified. Having said that, having covered all the things that we want to do for this particular video, I want you to subscribe so that when I post the JWT authentication token video on this, you are going to also follow up very well. I'll see you in our next video. For now, take care. See you. Share this video to your friends.